We must learn to free ourselves from the senses. And by the self, I mean the inner man. We must free the inner man from the senses. And I mentioned in my last video, where I was speaking about how you must remove reason. And reason to me is like just questions and all these concerns comes from fear. Anything that stops you from feeling the wish fulfilled within you, meaning that you feel the wish that you desire as a present fact now, not as something you will get, but something you are now. And I think one thing I mentioned, but I didn't go too deep on it, which was you must remove the idea of action from the mind. It's a part of the reasoning, because reasoning will tell you this. It'll tell you, okay, you're imagining your desire, but what are you going to do after you imagine? Where are you going to go? And what actions are you going to take? And I wrote this, I guess I wrote this out, so I'm just going to read this to you. The removal of action from the mind is necessary to feel the wish fulfilled. If you still feel that you must do something to bring your desire to pass, then you are still bounded by your senses. States come from within and express themselves without. Do not give credit to a false cause of action. There is only one cause, one power, and that is imagination. The reason you still may be bound by the senses is because you feel that experiences you went through were the result of physical action taking place. This blinds you from seeing the world of states. In the world of states, you move through it with felt assumption. You move from one state to another. Who's moving? I am. So you are the being that enters into and exits out of states, when you please. With this information, apply it by admitting impotence. Admit to oneself that they cannot do anything, for the actions they take come from imagination. Admit that the outer man of the senses is not capable of doing anything other than taking orders from imagination. Admit that all one can do is to assume that they are what they want to be as a present fact, and that is sufficient. Admit there is only one cause, and that is imagination. Rid yourself from the false cause of action. All actions have a cause, and the cause started from an idea that was accepted in imagination. Now with these admissions, you imagine without the nagging thought of, what am I going to do after I stop imagining my desire? What actions will I have to take to get this? This removal of resistance will allow you to embrace your desire as a present fact. All actions are predetermined by the state, so leave the predetermined world of actions and start living as the being who is the selector of states. To start living as this being, you must remove the attachment to behaviors. For this being is not a state, it is stateless. And if you attach yourself to behaviors, then you attach yourself to states, for they are one. You are not the behaviors, for you are not the state. You are attached to the behaviors because you are convinced on some level that there is causal power in behaviors. Always remember there is one cause, one power, and lose attachment to all other second causes, for they are false and will fail you. And speaking of that, while I was reading this, I had a thought. I was watching. I was on YouTube the other day, and I saw a preacher telling people to give them money. They said, if you give me $1,000, I will, or God's going to bless you. They said that if you sow this seed right now, you know how they do it on TV, God's going to bless you if you send this person money. And he said, this is the way. He goes, this is the way to financial freedom, is if you sow this seed now. But there's only one seed, and that's I am. There's only one way. Don't be convinced and think that in other causes, because the moment you start thinking in second cause, you'll think in a third cause and a fourth cause, and the next thing you know, all you say is coincidence, because you can't explain anything anymore, because you have all these causes. It's the food, it's my body, it's my present environment, it's this person, it's that person, we're all trying to find the cause, and we blame. But we must grant the cause to imagination entirely. And I just thought it was interesting how he even said, sow the seed, and this is the way. He said, this is the way to it. There's only one way. It's imagination. It's I am. I am the way. There's only one way. What does that mean? Well, one way to anything in the world. If I want something, I must become the person who has it. So I assume that I am that person. That's the way to it. Not as something I'm going to be. You know, for a long time when I would imagine, I would say the words, I am whatever I want to be. But if I'm honest with myself, deep down I felt, I hope I can be. I didn't really assume in the I am. But once I started to assume in the I am, which is having to give up everything I can do, everything, all my reasoning, all my questioning, I had to give it all up and just be it in the mind. You can feel safe to be things in the mind too, because it's your mind. And once I saw that, I was able to actually feel myself to be what I want now. And once I removed the idea of action from the mind, it became increasingly easier to trust my imagination entirely. I trust that it's the one cause. And I think the delusion in second causes, Neville says that's the chief delusion in man's life is second causes. And I agree with him. It's the biggest delusion of all. It's the delusion that causes fear. It causes everything you can think of. Jealousy, greed, everything that we don't like is caused by second causes. Or, yeah, it's the belief of second causes. It's a delusion. There's only one cause here, and that's imagination. And when you can believe that, when you can assume that to be the case, you will feel immense relief. You actually don't want to believe in any more second causes. You want to rid yourself from those. And you can. So I think that when people imagine, especially when I did, what you want, you do have the thoughts of, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I've realized that whenever there's attachment to anything in the mind, it's because on some level you think there's a causal power there, or like it's out of your control in the mind. You're on some level believing in it as, you're believing in it as if it has power. And I think action is a big one. What I've learned is that my actions completely change the moment I change my state. I even speak differently. I even have different thoughts. So I know I am a being who's in states. But I always remember I'm the being. You have to remember you're the being. You're not the state itself. And if you can assume in the I am, which is I am this now, regardless of what the world says, and regardless of what's happening in the world, and you can do that at will, then you have found a heaven within you. If you can assume that you are whatever you want to be at will. Meaning, you don't question it anymore. You don't doubt anymore. You hear imagination say you are, and you trust entirely imagination. And I think the best way, or one of the best ways, I have found on how to trust imagination is by believing that it's the one cause. And if you can believe it's the one cause, then I think you can trust in it. And I have looked back at my life and I've seen where my mind has created things. Even as a teenager, I can look back and see myself creating things. And I had a very active imagination as a child. And I could see myself creating. I didn't really think much of it at the time, but when I look back now, I can see that my imagination did cause things. And there are things that we don't look at in our lives, so that we don't really see us being the cause of it in our worlds. But there's only one cause here. So knowing that there's only one cause, and knowing that all it is, and everything that comes from it, from the senses, everything that came from imagination, then I can give up the senses. I can let go of what someone said yesterday, let go of what I'm going to do tomorrow, or what I'm going to do after I imagine. I let go of it all, and I just assume that I am it now. And I know that if I assume that I am it, I must express it. It will naturally happen. I will feel different. I will walk different and think different. And I respond and react differently to things. Because if you're in a new state, you would. And you persist doing that until you feel like it's the way you want it to be in your world. You persist in bringing it to the I am. And remember, I repeat this over and over because it's so important to me, is that when you imagine and you say, I am X, pay attention to how you feel and see if you are actually feeling, I hope I will be. And if you're feeling, I hope I will be, then you're not understanding who you are in imagination. If you're still hoping to be something, then you're not really living in imagination, because in imagination, you already are it. You're still bound by your senses. And you're bound by your senses because you think there's some causal power there. So remove that notion that there's a second cause. So I hope that helps.